members, we present the 2011 Ed McAteer Tree of Life Award to you tonight with these words from the book of Esther. For such a time as this, Janet, your courage is a testimony to all of us addressing issues that are often overwhelming in scope. For a time such as this, we know God blessed us with your leadership and your integrity. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Janet Parshall for her Christian leadership in the media by standing with Israel.
Thank you for those kind words.
Oh, no, thank you.
Thank you so much.
There you go.
Oh, absolutely beautiful. Lori, thank you so much. Oh, absolutely gorgeous award. I'm humbled by that. Thank you. And it's difficult to get an award for being obedient. So I'm very touched by this. I'm touched also that Ed's name is attached to this. For so many years coming to the national religious broadcasters to see that man's smiling face. I don't think anybody had a brighter smile than Ed. And I'm honored also because Ed was often considered the godfather of the religious right. So I'm honored to have looked at him as a leader and to know how much he looked at a sleepy church and said, wake up, wake up. And we're still listening to his clarion call to do that. I love what Adrian Rogers said, and Adrian was his pastor. He said, Ed McAteer was one of the most remarkable men I ever met. A man is known by whom he loves. Ed McAteer loved his Lord, loved his wife and family, loved his nation, and loved the nation of Israel. So I appreciate so much and look forward to standing next to Ed in eternity. You know, each year Ed would call Christians together and in his words, to honor Israel, to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and to allow Bible-believing Christians to express their unconditional love for God's ancient people. Those were Ed's words. You know, he was a role model. He was a role model to so many people to know and to remember, to love Israel and the Jewish people. He knew the mandate for believers to enter into the marketplace of ideas and to bring a message of love that was spoken with truth on our lips. He was a strong student of history, and he knew the role that the Jewish people did play, are playing, and will play in the course of human history. And he also knew that for Zion's sake, he would not be silent. Well, Ed knew that being silent had deadly results. And Ed, if he were alive today, would not be surprised at all about some of the things we're seeing around us. A neo-Nazi group based in Detroit is planning a 2-day conference in Mercer County with a rally outside the State House in New Jersey in April of this year. 2 weeks ago, a neo-Nazi was charged with manufacturing homemade explosives in Arizona. His goal, according to the state's U.S. attorney, was to maximize human carnage. In January, a neo-Nazi was convicted for encouraging violence against the foreman of a jury that convicted a fellow neo-Nazi of murdering a federal judge. In December, a neo-Nazi member was found guilty of vandalizing dozens of headstones in a Jewish cemetery near Chicago. And in November, a rally of neo-Nazis in Phoenix turned into a rock-hurling melee. That's just the last 4 months in the United States of America. Scripture says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Listen to these heartless comments. Jews should get the hell out of Palestine. They should go home to Poland, Germany, America, and everywhere else. The Congress, the White House, Hollywood, and Wall Street are owned by the Zionists. Former White House correspondent Helen Thomas. Jews have always been a problem in European countries. They had to be confined to ghettos and periodically massacred. Even after the massacre by the Nazis of Germany, they survived to continue to be a source of even greater problems to the world. The former Malaysian Prime Minister. The Jews have no historical or religious ties to the Temple Mount or the Western Wall. There is no archaeological evidence that the Temple Mount was built during the period of King Solomon. The Deputy Minister of Information for the Palestinian Authority. All Jews have a certain gene that distinguishes them from others. An economist who once sat on the board of Germany's central bank. The Nuremberg trial was the biggest legal farce in history. The legend about 6 million supposedly murdered Jews acquired a legal basis, even though the court did not have a single document signed by A. Hitler concerning the extermination of the Jews. A historian who worked for the Lithuanian Interior Ministry. Or this one, Israel has fouled up United States foreign policy for years. And trust me, Oliver Stone didn't use the word fouled up. That's just a few statements from the last few months. We could go on. But this is what we need to remember as the church, and I cannot look at this issue with anything other than through the lens of Scripture. And that is this: anti-Semitism is a sin, pure and simple. And when you look at this, you begin to understand the pernicious nature of this sin from the moment that Cain killed his brother Abel, to Pharaoh trying to imprison the Jews, to watching what was happening with Haman, to see what Herod did to the firstborn, to what took place at Buchenwald. We, with spiritual eyes, have to understand that Satan is afoot. And he has tried to wipe out the Jews since the Jews came into being. And there's one very simple and yet profound reason why he's doing that. He never, ever wants the world to know and remember the history of God's people, because if that truth is before the world will never know that the Messiah is real. Plain and simple. So what we need to do is understand that this is first, last, and always political warfare. I was so pleased that the rabbi brought this up, because yes, there are geopolitical conversations, and there's conversation about policy. I'll never forget having a conversation with, at the time, National Security Advisor Condi Rice. And I said, exactly what role does the United States have in this so-called development of a two-state solution? And she said, and I quote her directly, our job is to get the two sides to talk. Well, I think we've gone far afield from that. Craig and I have been in Amman, Jordan, and woke up when 15,000 members of the Islamic Brotherhood were below our window shouting death to Israel and burning the Israeli flag. Craig and I have been in Gaza when we've come under sniper fire. We left a kibbutz, and 15 minutes after we were gone, a Qassam rocket had slammed into the village and killed several people. I've walked the halls of the Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem, talking to people who were on the bus going to Gilo, who had been hit by terrorists. And I remember talking to one mother who was a mom of 4. She had aphasia. Complete left side of her body had been paralyzed by a terrorist act. And I asked her a leading question. I said, do you hate the people who did this to you? And she said, no. I just want to live in peace. I talked to a 14-year-old boy whose leg was blown off walking through an olive grove because some terrorist had planted a detonating device in the ground and it blew his leg off. And he was far from the mother who was on the bus at Gilo. And I said to him, do you hate the people who did this to you? He said, no, I just want to live in peace. And you know, that's what we need to remember, is that the Prince of Peace came out of the seed of Abraham. So Satan hates the Jews. This is spiritual warfare, first, last, and always. I sit in front of a microphone and I hear people say, there are no messianic teachings in the Old Testament, that somewhere between Malachi and Matthew, God changed his mind, or this ugly, unconscionable idea of replacement theology. Since when does God change his mind if he's the same yesterday, today, and forever? And I am afraid in these latter days we're going to see more and more of this. But the positive side in the midst of all of this is you sit and you watch what's going on the theater of the world stage, from the collapse in Lebanon to the tumult in the street in Cairo, to watching what's going on in Yemen and Iraq and Iran and Tripoli. And I have to tell you, a line that comes to my mind comes right out of the pen of C.S. Lewis. Aslan is on the move. And you and I can get excited about the fact that the